Hey, this is Diane from Primal Survivor, and I want to talk to you about homemade fire starters. Now, I used to think that using fire starters was kind of cheating. I've since come around and realized it's smart to have a bunch of fire starters on hand, especially if you need to make a fire in wet conditions. There are a bunch of different ways to make fire starters, but they all follow the same principle. You have a flammable material, for example, burlap or cotton balls or sawdust, and you coat it in something like Vaseline or wax, which is going to serve as fuel for your flame. You're basically making a mini candle. These fire starters that you can see me lighting are all made out of wax. The first row I made by lining some muffin tins with parchment paper, and I filled them with shredded paper, sawdust, and dryer lint, and poured melted wax directly on top. The second row is kind of a similar idea, except I used empty egg cartons instead of muffin tins, and those are filled with cotton balls, sawdust, and dryer lint. And the last ones I made by dipping a tea bag, a pine cone, a bundle of string, and some burlap directly into melted wax. I personally don't like wax fire starters very much, mostly because they're a pain to make. You always end up dripping wax all over the place. I particularly don't like the muffin tin ones. They use a lot of wax and they actually take a while to get lit because all of that wax is covering the wick material inside. However, I was really happy with the teabag fire starters. Those were very easy to make. They don't use too much materials. They're easy to get lit and it burned for about 8 minutes. Next up we have Vaseline fire starters. These are my go-to fire starters because they are so easy to make. You can basically take a cotton ball or some dryer lint, rub it in Vaseline, and wrap it up in a piece of paper, and you're ready to go. The only thing that's annoying about them is that your hands get covered in Vaseline and fuzz when you make them, which is actually can be kind of nice because you inadvertently moisturize your hands in the process. But if you don't want your hands to get all messy making these, what you can do is melt the Vaseline in a double boiler and then pour it over whatever materials you have. That's what I did with the fire starters on the left. I lined some muffin tins with parchment paper, filled them with shredded paper, sawdust, and dryer lint, and just poured the melted Vaseline on top. And same idea on the right side, except I used empty egg cartons instead of muffin tins. Vaseline fire starters aren't waterproof, but you can just carry them around in a plastic bag and that works well enough. They're really easy to get lit and they'll burn anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes depending on how much materials you use. To give you an idea of how crazy long these fire starters will last for, here's a side-by-side comparison. I've sped it up a bit. You can see that it really does take a while to get all of the wax fire starters going, but once they do, they burn for a really long time. Even the tea bag dipped in wax burned for 9 minutes. The pine cone burned for 13 minutes, and the muffin tin ones, because they have so much material in them, burned for over 12 minutes. The Vaseline fire starters don't last as long as the wax ones, but even with those, you're going to get at least a 6 or 7 minute burn time, which honestly is more than enough to get a fire going. If you can't get a fire going within 7 minutes, then you probably need to work on your fire building skills.